Hello, everyone. This is Alpha Omega. Today, we're going to take a look at JOBY Aviation. Their earnings report came out a few days ago. We're going to break down what they're talking about here, and the highlights are divided into these 6 points. Let's take a closer look at the details. So, the first thing they're talking about this time is a pilot on board. In other words, they conducted a transition flight with a pilot on board. That means they took off vertically, then transitioned to horizontal flight, and then landed vertically again. We can understand this as them testing internally to see if this process works well. Actually, they already succeeded in transition flights by remote control back in 2017, but this time, they did the transition flight with a person on board. Basically, this is in preparation for the FAA, because when the FAA tests this aircraft, they check separately whether it can take off and land well, whether it can transition between flight modes smoothly, and whether it can cruise properly. But this time, they conducted their own test to see if the transition flight works well. So, I think the significance of this test is as follows. Now, the fact that JOBY succeeded in a manned transition flight means this. Now, when the pilots dispatched by the FAA come for the final test, this shows that our aircraft is stable enough for those pilots to feel safe getting on board. Wasn't this kind of news meant to demonstrate that? That's what I was thinking. So, what are they going to do next? Now, they're going to do what's called TIA flight testing, which stands for Type Inspection Authorization. Here, the FAA pilots will actually fly the aircraft, and they need to do well in this phase for the official type certification to be issued. So, during the conference call, the question was asked, when will this TIA flight testing take place? They said that it will be done in Stage 5. So, just keep that in mind. Now, they also talked about something else this time. The term redundancy came up here. And they also mentioned fault tolerance. What this means is, well, redundancy means duplication or having backups. Fault tolerance means resistance to faults, and they said that they tested whether JOBY's aircraft has good redundancy, that is, whether it has solid backup systems, or if it can withstand failures when something goes wrong. So, how did they conduct the test? They stopped the operation of one of the two tilt mechanisms for the propellers. And then, out of the 4 battery packs, they cut off power to one of them. And, among the 6 propulsion systems, the propellers, they deactivated 2 of them. In this situation, they tested whether the aircraft could still fly safely and perform a vertical landing without any issues, and that's what they're talking about here. There's also a related video about this on YouTube. You can just watch that. If you turn on the Korean subtitles, you can see exactly how they conducted the test. Now, if you look here, each propeller has an actuator, and they tested what happens when one of the 2 actuators is deactivated, whether the remaining active actuator can still support the aircraft properly. You can see that they cut off the power from one of the battery packs. They also checked whether the remaining battery packs could keep the aircraft running properly. And if you look here, let's take a look at this picture of the propellers. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. It looks like they're spinning really fast, but there are 2 that are spinning relatively slowly. What this is that they intentionally stopped some of the propellers from spinning. So the question was, can the remaining 4 propellers keep the aircraft stable? That's what they were testing. So, in practice, they tested this one and that one. They tested this one with that one, and also tested the propellers that are diagonally across from each other, so they did a good job with the tolerance fault test. I wanted to mention this as well. So, if we take another look at JOBY's redundancy fault tolerance design, it means there are 6 independent electric propellers. So if 1 or more motors, well, this time, they intentionally caused 2 of them to fail. Even if those 2 fail, the design has always allowed the remaining rotors to maintain lift and thrust. All of this was taken into consideration when designing this JOBY aircraft. Now, the multi-battery system is also extremely important. This is what's called a battery management system, and when getting FAA certification, this BMS is a very important category. It's one of the key items. So, how did they design the batteries? They designed the battery packs in a distributed way. It would be good for you to understand this as well. So, in the battery management system, this is the kind of role it plays. It measures things like current, battery voltage, and the total pack current in real time. It also measures the external temperature, monitors for overcharging and overdischarging, and checks the current, remaining battery life. And if a particular cell has an issue, it also has a function to automatically isolate that cell. Anyway, the point is that this battery management system worked well this time. Right? So just keep that in mind as a reference. Now, if you look at this material, it talks about Dubai. In the part about Dubai, they said that they're going to do pilot onboard testing in Dubai as well. When they said it would be done this year. That's also something you might want to keep in mind. Now, as for the details related to Dubai, actually, what was it? It wasn't in the letter. It wasn't in the letter, but during the Q&A section of the conference call, questions like this came up. So if you look here, in this region, this region is Dubai. How many aircraft are planned to be operated in Dubai? Will the Dubai government operate them? Or will you be operating them? And is there a chance that subsidies will be provided in Dubai? I just talked about it. At that time, this is what was said. First, we plan to start with a small number of aircraft, and we are receiving high-level support from the Dubai Roads and Transport Authority and the Dubai government. That's what they also said. So, they said that right now, they are evaluating which routes to set up across the Emirates. And they mentioned that soon, one of the two aircraft will be sent to Dubai. So, when it goes to Dubai, well, as you know, Dubai is extremely hot. So, they said they're going to test whether these aircraft can operate well in the hot weather. They also mentioned that the ferry flight preparations are still ongoing. Now, let's take a look at something else. Since we're on the topic, during the Q&A session, there was also a question like this. So, if you get FAA certification in the US, how quickly do you think other countries will open up to you? He said, they answered that they're actively engaging with aviation authorities in countries like Australia, Japan, the UK, Dubai, and Saudi Arabia right now. But as many of you already know, the FAA has mutual certification agreements with most countries. So, once they get FAA certification in the US, they expect and anticipate that they'll be able to get certified in other countries very quickly as well. Now, there's one more thing. Right now, there's a lot of conflict over tariffs in the US, so can trade negotiations affect the certification process in another country? That's what was being asked. And the executives, well, JOBY said that trade policies have no impact on them. In fact, as countries are showing a trend of wanting to buy more American-made products, JOBY said that this could actually present a significant opportunity for them. I think it would be good for you to keep that in mind. Now, if you look here, it says preparing for market. Let's take a look at what they talked about here. So, Marina has just expanded the factory, and now the manufacturing facilities and capacity are doubled. They also mentioned that deliveries are scheduled to begin next month. And a full-motion flight simulator will also be installed at this manufacturing plant. So here, not only JOBY's own pilots, but also when the FAA conducts ITR, their pilots will come as well, right? They mentioned during the conference call that these pilots will also get to experience this simulator. And so, what else did they say? Regarding mass production, they mentioned that, based on their experience with Toyota, achieving mass production doesn't happen overnight. That was Joe Ben Bevert. So, what this really means is that he was basically asking investors to take a longer-term view when it comes to mass production. That's something we could kind of pick up on. As JOBY investors, we're always wondering, when will mass production actually happen? When will these things really be flying and become commercialized? This is what we're all waiting for the most right now, but he basically said we might have to wait a bit longer for mass production than we originally thought. That's what he was saying. Just keep that in mind. Now, next up, they mentioned Virgin Atlantic. They formed another partnership with an airline, and to sum this up a bit, there's Delta Airlines. Back in 2020, or was it? When was it? Was it 2022? Or maybe 2017? Anyway, around that time, Delta Airlines invested $30 million in them. They're an investor. And actually, Delta Airlines owns 49% of Virgin Atlantic. Just a major shareholder. A major shareholder. So, what this means is that this is a partnership that expands on their existing cooperation. You can think of Delta Airlines or Delta, and even Virgin Atlantic. Their parent company is essentially Delta Airlines. So, Virgin Atlantic, the UK Civil Aviation Authority, and the UK Civil Aviation Authority are all going to support the certification process and help develop vertiports at major airports. So right now, 2 airports, Heathrow Airport and Manchester Airport, are being discussed, so just keep that in mind. This photo here is of the Marina facility. This is what I was talking about earlier, the factory that's being built. This is the vertiport in Dubai. They're building it like this in Dubai, so just keep that in mind. Alright, so, there was one more thing. Toyota has provided a lot of financial support so far. But in addition to that, they've now promised to invest $500 million. But they also mentioned that half of that amount is expected to be reflected in the financial statements this quarter, which means they now have a bit more liquidity, just something to keep in mind. Alright, so now, let's take a look. As for revenue, there really isn't any. There's no revenue yet. There's no revenue, and this time, the net loss is $80 million. After adding up all the facility costs and everything else, the total net loss came out to $80 million, but they still have a lot of cash on hand, for now. If you look here, they have total current assets of $841 million. Total current assets refer to the capital that a company can liquidate within a year, and that's $841 million. On top of that, Toyota has said they will provide an additional $500 million in support. So, in terms of liquidity, I personally think there's no need to worry about it just yet. And if you look here again, as I just mentioned, Toyota is providing $500 million, and this money is coming in unconditionally, without any separate certification or milestones. So, Toyota is already deeply involved in this. So, what I want to say is that JOBY's success is also Toyota's success. Now, the current stock price is $6.65, which has dropped quite a bit. But as I've already uploaded a lot of JOBY videos before, back then when the price was around $4, I said it was a really good buying opportunity because at that time, the stock was at $4. But from my current perspective, I still think it's unlikely that it will drop back down to $4. Even if it does go down, I think it'll only fall to around the $6 range, and that the low $6 mark might be JOBY's lowest point. That's my personal opinion. I also own JOBY, and my average purchase price is $4. I hope you find this helpful. Anyway, I think this is a good place to wrap up the JOBY video. If there's any news, I'll make sure to share updates through the community, even if it's just briefly. That's it for today's JOBY video, and I'll be back after preparing a summary of the next company. Thank you.